Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Paper Crafting Thursday. I'm Leslie Watkins. Well, I've got these beautiful sunflowers back out again. I just love these flowers. They're the common name is false sunflower, and I have them growing in various places in the gardens here at Dandelion Cottage because they're so showy and they are pest free and they're just, I think, lovely, and they also make great cut flowers. And so yesterday I did a little watercolor using one of these as my subject, but today I'm going to use them for a paper crafting project. The stamp set I'm using is called Inked and Tiled, and if you take a close look, you'll see that the flowers in this stamp set look very much like the false sunflowers, and I really like the kind of broad brushstroke look and texture of these stamps, so I'm looking forward to using it. It also comes as a bundle where you get 2 punches, and these punches are really interesting, and I'm going to be showing you how you can use them in a little while. But first I want to get started with the stamping. My color palette is Mango Melody, and I think you can see that that goes very nicely with the color of these flowers. And then I've also pulled out some Pear Pizzazz, and this mat measures 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. I've got a half a sheet of the Fluid 100 watercolor paper, so that is 3 1/2 by 5. And then my Mango Melody piece measures 8 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's just a half sheet, and this is going to be our card base. So I'm going to start with that. Oh, and I also found in my stash, I found some retired Pear Pizzazz ribbon, and so you can see how beautifully all these things coordinate. I'm going to be using this a little bit later. Okay, so let's get started, and I'm going to begin by doing some all-over stamping on my card base. I just want to check my settings, make sure that everybody can see and hear me. I see Ginger. Good morning, Ginger. Nice to see you. These stamps are some pretty good sized stamps, and they're ideal for an all-over pattern. So I'm just going to start kind of randomly, do a little tone-on-tone stamping. And the impression I'm looking for here is just a kind of a field of these beautiful sunflowers, kind of a meadow look. All right, so there's my flowers. Now I'm going to go into my Pear Pizzazz ink, and I'm using this leaf stamp. And I'm going to stamp off a little bit as I get into the background. Okay, so that's all. I just wanted some kind of a pattern like so. Let me see. Now I also have a stamp that is the full face of the flower, so I want to add a couple of those. There we go. Okay. Let me make a little area to work in here. Oh, one more thing. The inside. So I have my pecan pie ink. This is one of the new colors. And I have this little tiny flower center stamp, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a little extra detail in those full-faced flowers. Getting out my trimmer, and I'm going to score this at 1 1/4. Actually, I want to flip it over and score it at 1. Make sure I've got this right side up. Okay, so let me explain that. So I'm taking my pattern and I'm putting it into my trimmer on the back side, making sure that the top of my pattern is at the top, and then I'm just going to put 2 score marks, so one at 1 1/4 and a second one at 5 1/2. Hi Linda, I am having a good week, but it's so confusing. It doesn't feel like Thursday, it feels like Wednesday. I'm all discombobulated with the holiday time. Okay, so that's the card base. So it opens up like this and closes like that. This now measures 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make sure I give this a good burnishing with my bone folder. I'm going to glue just the edges like so. I'll zoom you in so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so I'm just putting the glue on the edges of that smaller fold, and I'm just going to hold that in place for just a moment, let that set up, give it a little burnish. There we go. So it looks like this. So I'm going to put this aside for the time being and get out my watercolor mat now. I mean my watercolor. This is a half sheet of the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. And I'm going to give this a light spritz. So I'm just going to do this off camera. Okay, and I'm just using my spritzer, which looks like this. Okay, and that's going to give me a little bit of a softer finish to my stamping. and I may come back and give it another little spritz in a minute. So first thing, my Mango Melody. A little stamp. I've got my full sunflower. And then I'm going to take my Pear Pizzazz and my leaf, and I'm going to go off the page a little bit here, so I'm just going to put this down along the bottom like so. Maybe a little bit more up here. There we go. And I also have another stamp of some of the sunflower buds. I'm going to use that stamp to just go into some of these other areas where I want a little more color. Okay, so now next I'm going to go back to my spritzer. And I'm just going to give it a light misting just to get some of those colors moving. So you can see it's very wet and the ink is moving. I can control a little bit of it just by dabbing at it with a tissue, just kind of gently. All right, and I'm going to put this aside to dry. Hi Diane, thanks for joining me today. I'm glad to see you here. Now the next thing, well, let me just move some of these things aside for a second. The next thing I want to show you are these punches, which I think are really, really fun. And let me find my, what did I do with my punches? Oh, here they are underneath. Of course, everything's underneath everything. So you get 2 punches to this pack, and they are called the Ink and Tiles punches. And you get a kind of a Persian star, which is 2 squares or an 8-pointed star. And then you get this little cross. And they are very fun because you can use them together to create a beautiful tile. So I'm going to go ahead, punch out a couple of these star shapes. And the crosses. Also, you can make a really pretty design using the negative shape. show you that in just a second. There. So you see, you could use this on a card, something like that, which would be very pretty, okay? Or you could even use it as a stencil. So lots of things to explore with these punches. But let me show you the pattern that you can make with them. So you can arrange them to create a beautiful kind of a quilt-like pattern. Which I think is really, really neat. I'm going to do something like that, except that I'm going to be doing it a little bit smaller because I have a piece of very vanilla here, and this piece measures 5.5 by 4, and I've got it scored down the center at 2 3/4. And what I want to do is I want to make a little pattern on one side and use it as a note card. So let's see what we can do here. I need another one of these. So that's how I want to arrange them on the front of my note card. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off a couple of corners to make it symmetrical. So that's what it's going to look like. And I'm going to glue those down. So I'll begin with this one. And I just want to make sure I get that centered. I'm leaving a little bit of a border. So there's one. Get my top corner. My bottom corner. This bundle stamp set also has some really nice sentiments in it. So it's got just a note, lots of love, congratulations, thank you, happy birthday, and hello friend. So these are the ones that I use most often, so I'm really happy to see them all in one collection. And because I don't have a specific use for this card today, I'm going to leave the sentiment blank. I'm not going to put a sentiment on it, but I will when I have the appropriate occasion, I will then add my sentiment. This would make a great birthday card, but a lot of the birthdays in my life are kind of have already happened. Actually, that's not true. What am I thinking? I do have a birthday coming up. Ooh, July 10th. There is a birthday. I'm going to go ahead and give that a good burnishing. There we go. Now I think that's really cute. Now this is just a little note card. Of course you could do this full size, whatever size you like. But I just really like that. You can put your stamp inside. So okay, so that is my little punch demonstration. Let's get back to the card itself. So here's my misted watercolor, and as you can see it's all kind of nice and diffused, which I like, but I do want to add a little more detail. So with the pecan pie and the center stamp, I'm going to go ahead and add a little extra something. And you see now that the card or the paper has had a minute to dry, it's actually able to hold that definition a little bit better. And I can do the same thing with some of my flower shapes. So actually, if I wanted this flower to be darker, I could just go over it again. You see, and that's going to give me a little more definition. But what I really love about these stamps is that they are so kind of abstract and kind of brushy. So I'm just going to do this again down at the bottom. Maybe one over here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. However, I do want to sponge the edges a little bit. So for that, I'm going to get out one of my sponges. Now, if you have a dauber, then that's fine. You could also use your blending brushes, but I just really like using the sponges because I think that they are they're just easier to use around the edges. And the card's still a little bit damp, but that's okay because I'm going to be gluing it down using the liquid glue. Now, if you were using a different type of glue, if you were using one of the runner tape glues or the tear and tape, then you would want to wait for this to dry completely. But the wet glue works perfectly on a damp piece of paper, so that's what I'm going to do. So there we go. Now I want to add one more thing. And that is, I want to put a little bow on here. And I'm going to grab my hole punch, and I'm looking for my smaller one. That's too small. I always pull the right one last. Here we go. So I'm going to just come up as far as I can, right about here. I'm going to punch 2 holes. I'm going to grab my ribbon and just poke it through. I have a little point that I'm sending through the hole. There we go. And tie that. Make a little bow. My fingers aren't working too well today. There we go. Get that how I want it. Snip. Now I have my card base here, or my mat, and again this measures 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to mount that right on top of there. A little burnish. Okay, so there's my design. Now I'm getting my card base out again. Alright, and this is going to be mounted on the front, just like that. So you see, I only want to put glue on this side, not over here. Okay, and what I can do actually, just to make sure, I can get that kind of centered on there, and then just put a little pencil to keep me where I need to be. That's centered. Now you'll notice these proportions are a little bit wider. I'm sorry, they're a little bit higher than wider. So I just want to make sure that all of these sides relate properly to one another. Okay, so there it is. My decoration on the inside. And then I can take my little note card, which could have a gift card in it. So you could put a card inside there, you could put some cash or whatever, and that's going to slip right inside my little pocket, like so. Get that straight. And that is my card for you today. So I hope that gave you some ideas. The punch is really fun. I really recommend that you get both the punch set and the stamp set as a bundle. And again, this is called Inked and Tiled. And really, this is just the beginning. I think that you're gonna get very creative with this particular set, and also that it has all of these wonderful sentiments just makes it that much better. Okay, everybody, so let me just see if there's any questions. Linda says she's retired, so every day is Saturday. Yay! Okay, so Ginger likes it. Linda likes it. The misting is a great addition. Yeah, well, you know, this set in particular, I mean, you could mist anything, obviously, but I think that because it's so brushy and has such nice texture, I think it really lends itself particularly to that technique. Alrighty, well, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful weekend coming up. I hope that also, don't forget, today was the beginning of the bonus days. So if you, for every $50 order you place, you will get a $5 coupon to spend in August. So this is a great time to put together a good sized order, because you're going to get a lot of benefit back from it. So stay well, stay happy, stay creative, and I will see you next time.